The air in the airport VIP lounge was chilled to that perfect, sterile coolness that always felt just a degree too cold. The central air pushed through vents carrying a faint, cheap jasmine fragrance mixed with the bitter bite of freshly brewed coffee. I sat on the leather couch by the window, a cup of now lukewarm Americano dangling from my fingers, staring through the floor-to-ceiling glass at the Airbus A380 on the tarmac with its blue whale logo emblazoned on the fuselage. Sunlight bounced off the metal skin in a blinding white glare. Lily sat beside me, her short legs dangling over the edge of the sofa, swinging gently back and forth. The Little Prince lay open on her lap, but she wasn't reading it. Her eyes kept darting to the electronic board above the boarding gate, where the words "Now boarding" blinked green next to flight number K888. Dad, when are we going up? She whispered, like she was afraid of disturbing the men in suits making phone calls around us. She was 10 years old. Her hair was pulled into two little buns that made her round face look like a little hamster's. She'd flown countless times, but the excitement before boarding never faded. Soon, when your mom gets back. I reached over and ruffled her hair. Sophie had gone to the restroom 10 minutes ago and hadn't returned. Her Hermes Birkin bag still sat on the armchair across from us, her phone face up on top of it, screen still glowing. It was open to her WhatsApp conversation with Ryan. I wasn't trying to look, but my peripheral vision caught the last message. Ryan's, Sophie. We're at gate 3. Kai's running a fever. Sorry to trouble you. Ryan was Sophie's executive assistant, 30 years old, clean cut, with a slight southern drawl that came out when he was flustered. Always in tailored suits, hair perfectly combed. I hadn't known he was also in Sonia. Sophie hadn't mentioned it.mr. Lynn. Mr. Lin.an overly enthusiastic voice boomed from the entrance. I looked up and saw Ryan walking briskly toward us, a 7-year-old boy in tow. The kid's face was pale. A fever patch stuck to his forehead, shuffling reluctantly behind Ryan. Ryan wore a light blue polo shirt and carried 2 rolling suitcases. A bulging backpack slung over his shoulders. Looked like he was moving house. Ryan. I stood up and offered a polite smile. You're headed to Sonia too. Well, Kai here got sick. You see. Ryan's face was all smiles as he pushed the boy forward. The little guy insisted on the beach. Sophie said since we were heading the same way, I should bring him along. She said I could help with Lily too. She's so thoughtful. As he spoke, his eyes kept flickering past me. I followed his gaze and turned around just in time to see Sophie emerge from the restroom hallway. She wore a cream linen sundress today, her hair loosely pinned up, her face lightly made up, Chanel flat sandals on her feet. She looked elegant and composed, like she hadn't just vanished for 10 minutes claiming she needed the restroom. Ryan, you made it. Sophie walked over, her gaze sliding past me and landing directly on Ryan's face. Her tone as familiar as if she were greeting family. She bent down and pressed her palm to Kai's forehead, frowning. Still warm. Get some rest on the plane, Sophie. I really can't thank you enough. Ryan bowed repeatedly. Don't mention it. Sophie waved dismissively, then turned to me. Honey, I had Ryan transfer the upgrade fees for Lily and me. Kai's running a fever. First class is more spacious. He'll be more comfortable lying down. The 3 of us will take economy. It's only a 3-hour flight. My brain felt like someone had hit the pause button. The image froze on Sophie's face, smiling as if everything was perfectly reasonable. What upgrade? I asked. Sophie raised an eyebrow. Her smile flickered for just a fraction of a second before settling back into place. Oh, I didn't get a chance to tell you. Ryan booked economy. Kai's sick. I figured it'd be better for them to have first class. Lily can give up her first class seat for Kai. I'll join you in economy. She said it like she was deciding what to have for lunch. I looked down at Lily. Her book was closed now. She was looking up at Sophie with her big eyes fixed on her mother, lips pressed together in a thin line. She said nothing, but her hand had reached out and gripped the fabric of my sleeve. Her tiny knuckles were white. Lily, can Mom talk to you for a second? Sophie crouched down, her voice softening into that warm, comforting tone she used when coaxing a frightened kitten. Kai's sick. Why don't you sit in economy with Mom and help me take care of him? You're such a good girl. Lily didn't respond. Her grip on my sleeve tightened. Ryan chimed in smoothly. Lily's such a sweetheart. Uncle Ryan will get you the biggest Lego set. Okay, Kai. Say thank you to Aunt Sophie and Uncle Lin. Kai mumbled a thank you, then coughed weakly. Sophie straightened up immediately, her face full of concern. Oh, don't just stand around. Ryan, take him up first. The AC here is only going to make things worse. Got it. Ryan moved quickly, picking up the 2 suitcases, then nodded at me. Well, Mr. Lin, we'll see you on the plane. As he passed Lily and me, I saw it clearly, the faint, almost imperceptible smile curling at the corner of his mouth. Not quite smug, more like a quiet, assured contempt. The look of a man who knew something you didn't. Look at that. Your wife's things. I can take them whenever I want. Other passengers were nearby. A middle-aged man in a charcoal suit glanced over while on his phone, then quickly looked away. 2 young women sat by the charging station in the corner. One of them had her phone pointed at Sophie, whispering something to her friend that I could imagine what they were saying. Look at that woman, such a piece of work. Or maybe, that guy's such a pushover. Sophie was still at the gate counter, talking to the staff about the seat changes. I stood where I was, feeling the air around me slowly thinning. Lily. Sophie turned and waved me over. Can I get your boarding pass? I need the gate agent to reassign you to economy. I took a slow breath, then pulled out the boarding pass with 1A printed on it and handed it to her. She took it without even looking at my face, turning immediately to hand it to the agent. Dad. Lily's voice came from beside me, small and soft, carrying a restraint that no 10-year-old should have to learn. I crouched down and pulled her into my arms. Her small body was trembling. It's okay. I whispered into her ear. Dad's here. Does Mom not like me anymore? Her lips were trembling, eyes red, but she wasn't crying. She was biting her lower lip. Her old habit. The one she used whenever she was trying not to break down in front of anyone. Of course she likes you. I brushed her cold cheek with my palm. Lily's the best. Yes, I said it. My throat tightened like it was clogged with something. I was 40 years old. I'd built a tech company from nothing, now valued at over $20 million. I'd survived investor walkouts, partner betrayals, supply chain collapses right before product launch. I'd seen it all, but standing here at the boarding gate, holding my 10-year-old daughter in my arms, I felt like the biggest failure on earth. Sophie returned, dusting her hands off. Done. Let's go. Ryan and Kai should be up already. She bent down to take Lily's hand. Lily instinctively shrank back behind me. Sophie's hand froze midair. A flicker of annoyance crossed her face, quickly suppressed. She straightened up without a word, turned, and walked toward the boarding gate with a fine, do whatever you want shrug. Come on. I took Lily's hand and followed. The jet bridge felt endless. Sophie walked ahead of me, the hem of her cream dress swaying, her heels clicking against the metal floor with practiced elegance. Behind me, my daughter shuffled slowly, her small sneakers dragging. At the cabin door, the flight attendant smiled and welcomed us aboard, then glanced at our boarding passes and gestured Sophie toward the first-class cabin on the left. Sophie reflexively stepped left. Then caught herself. Her body went rigid for a moment, an awkward pause, before she turned and walked toward the economy cabin on the right. First class was spacious. Private cubicles with seats that folded completely flat. As I passed, I could see through the half-open curtain that Ryan was already lounging comfortably, one leg crossed over the other, a glass of champagne in his hand. Kai sat beside him under a thin airline blanket, a tray of cut fruit on the small table in front of him. Ryan saw me passing and gave a slight nod, raising his glass in a toast-like gesture. The performance of it was so deliberate. Like he was the natural inhabitant of this space, and I was just a stranger passing through. I smiled at him, nodded back, then kept walking into the cramped, suffocating economy cabin. The seats were packed tight. The air smelled of reheated food and body odor, and that faint chemical tang of airplane deodorizer. Our seats were in the 4th row from the back. Window and middle. Sophie was already seated, flipping through a fashion magazine. I put Lily in the window seat, took the middle myself, and flipped up the armrest so she could lean on me. After takeoff, Lily pressed her face to the window to watch the clouds. Slowly, her head started to droop, tilting until it rested on my shoulder. Her breath came in warm, even puffs against my shirt sleeve. I kept one arm around her and pulled out my phone with the other, opening the airline app to check the upgrade records. The upgrade to first class had been paid for with a corporate account. Crest Technologies. Ryan's upgrade had been paid for with my company's money. I looked up through the gap between the seats. Sophie was scrolling through her phone, her face lit by the glow of the screen. She was still beautiful, her features sharp and elegant in the dim light. But she looked like a stranger to me now. Her thumb moved across the screen with practiced speed. There was a faint, soft smile tugging at the corner of her lips. I let my gaze drift to the top of her screen. A WhatsApp notification popped up. The sender was labeled with just a last name, Joe. The preview line was short, but when I saw it, I felt like someone had dumped ice water over my head. Sophie. The bed in first class is huge. Wish you were here. Sophie opened the message instantly, her thumbs moving fast. Then she flipped the phone face down on her knee. She turned her head slightly, scanning the economy cabin, her gaze passing over the rows before landing on my face. She smiled at me, warm, polite, flawless that I smiled back. Then I looked down at my daughter's sleeping face. Her brows were slightly furrowed, like she was having a bad dream. I reached out and gently smoothed the crease between her eyes. Her skin was cool under my fingertips. Outside the window was a sea of clouds, white and endless, stretching into nothing. I slipped my phone back into my pocket, leaned back in my seat, and closed my eyes. The economy seat was hard and narrow. The overhead AC vent droned on. Someone was talking loudly on the phone behind me. Someone else sneezed up front. All of it was noise, but beneath the noise, I could hear the voice in my head, quiet and terrifyingly steady. Sophie, you're going to regret what you did today, Ryan. Your smile isn't going to last. I opened my eyes and looked at my reflection in the window. The face looking back at me looked calm, almost tired. There was still the faint, habitual smile at the corners of my mouth. But there was something else in my eyes now, something deep and cold, like the surface of the ocean before a storm. Lily stirred in her sleep, murmured Dad, and settled again. I pulled her closer, draping my jacket over her exposed shoulder. The plane flew steadily above the clouds. Destination Sonia. Sunday sand. Azure water. But I knew this trip wasn't going to end in paradise. Some things were about to change forever. Chapter 2. The Pullman Resort in Sonia's Yalong Bay was a 5-star property with a 2-bedroom ocean view suite. The balcony faced a private beach, emerald water rolling in during the day, the sound of waves crashing through the dark at night. But the view might as well have been wallpaper the first night we arrived. Sophie claimed Lily was too tired and assigned us to the smaller interior bedroom, keeping the master suite with its private terrace for herself. The interior bedroom looked out onto the hotel's central water feature, blocked by a stone wall covered in bougainvillea. You take the room with Lily, she'd said, standing in front of the mirror applying night cream. Not even glancing my way. I have international calls to take tonight. Don't want to wake you. Her face in the mirror was smooth and full, AT40. She could pass for early 30s. But looking at her now, all I saw was the cold unfamiliarity beneath the carefully maintained surface. That I said nothing. I dragged our luggage into the smaller bedroom. Lily was lying on the bed, drawing on the hotel notepad. 3 trees of different heights. A tiny figure under the tallest one. A line of crooked handwriting. Me and Dad. I sat on the edge of the bed watching her, feeling too many things to know where to start untangling them. On my phone was the screenshot of the upgrade transaction, and the one I'd taken of Ryan's message. Sophie, the bed in first class is huge. Wish you were here. I stared at it for a long time before saving it to my encrypted folder. Dad. Lily stopped drawing and looked up at me. Why did Mom give my seat to Kai? Her eyes were big and dark, the kind that seemed to take up her whole face when she looked at you. There was confusion and hurt in them, but also something more careful. Like she was testing a suspicion she didn't dare confirm. Mom thought Kai was sick and needed more space. My voice was steady, even smiling. Can you be understanding, Lily? But she looked down, her pen moving in small circles on the paper. When I was sick, Mom never gave me first class. Last year when I was in the hospital with pneumonia, she only came to see me once. The words hit me like a needle, precise and sharp, finding the softest spot. Last year, Lily had been hospitalized for a week with pneumonia. Sophie had visited once. A 20-minute appearance. Claiming the company was in the middle of a critical Series A round. I'd taken 3 days off to stay at the hospital, waking up in the middle of the night to check her temperature, watching her burn with fever and call for her mother in her delirium. That I'd made excuses for Sophie back then. She's working hard for the family, for the company. The pressure's getting to her. I told myself once things stabilized, she'd go back to being the caring, gentle woman I'd married. That I'd made 1,000 excuses to keep the fantasy alive. The boarding gate today. Those fantasies had shattered one by one. Lily. I lifted her onto my lap. I promise you this, no matter what happens from now on, Dad will always be here. She buried her face in my chest and gave a muffled mm. I didn't sleep that night, lying on the unfamiliar hotel bed, listening to the distant crash of waves. My mind replayed the past 5 years like a film I couldn't stop. 5 years ago, Sophie had come into Crest Technologies. ostensibly to help carry the burden. She started as marketing director and worked her way up to vice president. I thought she was capable, ambitious, and that it was good for the company. Gradually, finance, HR, market channels, that everything fell under her purview. As founder and CEO, I was systematically pushed to the margins. You're technically minded, not cut out for management. At board meetings, she'd find ways to dismiss or shelve my proposals. On important client dinners, she'd have Ryan accompany her instead. I was always the one who couldn't make it. I'd thought it was just the natural friction of a husband and wife founding team. Complementarity. I genuinely believed Sophie was better at operations and socializing. I was happy to focus on product development. Now I saw every step had been carefully planned, that she'd isolated me from my social circles, that am my old college friends. Early business partners. All gradually drifted away. They're just leeching off your resources. She'd said, she'd taken control of our finances. Better centralized investment planning. She'd claimed. In reality, aside from the old apartment I owned before we married, every asset was in her name, but she'd been increasingly harsh with Lily's education, packing her schedule with piano, ballet, English, math, that every misstep met with "you're just like your father." No ambition. I'd thought she was pushing our daughter to succeed. Now I understood it was contempt for my bloodline. Even her closeness with Ryan, that I'd once thought of it as the natural rapport between a boss and a trusted subordinate. But the message on the plane had shattered every self-deception I'd been clinging to. What kind of male assistant sends his married female boss a message like "the bed is huge? Wish you were here." I rolled over and grabbed my phone from the nightstand. I opened the encrypted folder and looked at the screenshot again. Then I opened my notes app and started typing. I needed a plan. A complete one. A plan that would expose everything and make them pay. I wasn't the type to make a scene in public. The airport had already taught me that lesson. If you don't have the cards, showing your hand only makes you look weaker. I needed evidence. I needed time. I needed patience. The second day in Sonia, Sophie said she had a meeting with a potential local partner. She left at 9 in the morning and came back at 11 at night. I spent the day on the beach with Lily. Building sandcastles, collecting shells, swimming. Lily laughed until her eyes curved like crescent moons. My heart felt heavy as lead. On the third day, Ryan showed up with Kai at the hotel breakfast buffet. Sophie had conveniently arranged to have breakfast together. Ryan wore a loud Hawaiian shirt and sat next to her. Kai, recovered from his fever, was bouncing around Lily. Lily hid behind me at first, but Kai dragged her off to get cake, and she followed reluctantly. The three of us were left at the table, Sophie, Ryan, and me. Sophie was sipping congee. Ryan spread butter on toast. They sat barely 20 centimeters apart, shoulders almost touching. From a distance, they looked like a couple. Sophie, if this Sonia deal goes through, our KPIs for the second half are locked in. Ryan chewed his toast, casual as a brother chatting with his sister. Mr. Zhao's basically confirmed. We just need to finalize the paperwork when we get back. Sophie wiped her mouth with a napkin, then suddenly turned to me. Honey, the company's starting a new project. It might involve migrating some core data. We'll need access to the server permissions. What project? I asked, cutting my fried egg into pieces. It's a data integration with a new tech company. Their algorithms team is strong. They can help us optimize our current product. Sophie's tone was light. Don't worry about the specifics. Ryan will coordinate with the technical team. I grunted in acknowledgement. Didn't push. Ryan glanced at me. There was something in his expression. Not quite smug, but that carefully restrained satisfaction of a man who knows he's winning. Your wife's company. You can't even ask questions. He turned to Sophie and exchanged a look with her. A shared secret. A private understanding. Passed like a handshake under the table. I pretended not to see, but I remembered. New tech company and core data migration. That night, after Sophie left for another meeting, I sent a message to Owen. Owen was Owen Chun, 50 years old, our technical director. He'd been my college roommate for 4 years. The core technology of Crest Technologies. We'd built it together in a rented room near campus, pulling all-nighters fueled by instant noodles and caffeine. He was quiet, dependable, the kind of man who'd follow through on a promise even if it meant walking through fire. He was also the only founding member Sophie hadn't managed to push out. Owen, is there a data migration project in the works? I waited about 10 minutes. My phone buzzed. Yes. Sophie approved a project last week to integrate data with a new company called Horizon Tech, incorporated less than 3 months ago. Legal rep, Ryan Zhou. I stared at the screen, Can you check the details? Scope of migration. Process. Anything. I can. But I'll need your written authorization. My admin access was downgraded recently. Sophie's orders. I took a breath and typed. I'll send it tomorrow. Owen. This stays between us. Understood. Lynn. You finally woke up. I sat on the balcony for a long time after reading that last message. Owen's words echoed in the dark. You finally woke up. The ocean breeze was salty and damp. Somewhere in the distance, a couple was setting off fireworks, bursts of color that vanished against the black water. I opened my photo gallery. There was a family photo from last Chinese New Year. The three of us on our living room couch. Lily in the middle, Sophie with her arm around her, me on the other side. Sophie's smile was perfectly posed. Lily was laughing freely, and I was smiling too. Back then, I believed this family was whole. I stared at it for a long time. Then I closed the photo and opened my notes app. I added a line to my plan document. Investigate Horizon Tech's registration. Investigate financial flows between Sophie and Ryan. Audit all major decisions Sophie made over the past 5 years. Stay low. Then I stood up and walked back inside. Lily had fallen asleep, curled into a ball under the covers. Her little dolphin plushie clutched to her chest. I pulled the blanket up to her chin and kissed her forehead. Outside, fireworks kept exploding. Brief flashes that lit the ceiling of the room like silent countdowns. I lay back in my own bed, staring at the dark ceiling. The indicator light on my phone blinked on and off on the nightstand. 4 more days of this trip. I knew when we got back. A war was waiting for me. I had to fight it. And I had to win. Not for me, for Lily, for the little girl who'd gripped my sleeve and bit her lip to keep from crying in that boarding gate. She was only 10, and she'd already learned silence and forbearance. I was her father. It had taken me 10 years to see the truth about the woman beside me. That was 10 years too many. From now on, I wouldn't let a single thing hurt her. The faint smell of fireworks smoke drifted through the window. Sharp, unforgiving. I in the dark. The voice in my head grew clearer and colder. Sophie. You and Lily. I'm going to collect everything you owe. Chapter 3. The first day back in Bay City. I started my performance. Dad, you're not going to work today? Lily stood by the door in her school uniform, tilting her head, watching me in my sweatpants and old t-shirt at the stove. Nope. Taking a break. Got some personal investments to think about. I slid a fried egg onto a plate and poured her a glass of milk. Eat up. Don't want to be late. Lily said okay and sat down obediently. Sophie emerged from the master bedroom, fully made up, in a sharp navy suit and black heels. She looked like she was about to step into a boardroom. Her eyes scanned my outfit, the basketball shorts, the faded college t-shirt, and her lips pressed together in a barely concealed grimace. That you're not going to the office? Nope. I carried my own plate to the table. You said I was getting in the way of management. I thought about it. And you're right. I should step back. Owen's got the tech side covered. I'll just read some books and do a little investing from home. Sophie stood there for a few seconds, studying me. I could feel her gaze assessing. Was this a trap? Some play? I looked back at her with a slightly sheepish, slightly apologetic smile. The one I'd always worn when I backed down. Fine. She finally turned away, grabbing her Birkin from the shoe cabinet. I have a dinner meeting tonight. Don't wait up. The driver can take Lily to her piano lesson. The door slammed shut. Her heels clicked down the hallway. Fading. I sat at the table sipping my milk, counting the seconds until the sound disappeared. Then I pulled out my phone and texted Owen. She's gone. Go ahead with the plan. At 10 a.m. I changed into an inconspicuous gray jacket, put on a baseball cap, and took the subway to a co-working space in the south of the city. I'd rented a small temp office under the name of a defunct old company, no connection to my current identity. The room had a desk, a chair, a new laptop, and a mobile hotspot registered under an anonymous prepaid card. This was where I'd start phase 1. EA failure. Starting today. Sophie and her pretty boy assistant were going to believe Lynn you had completely given up. A former founder who stayed home day trading stocks was no threat to anyone. Only when they let their guard down would they push forward with the data migration. And when they thought they were safe, I'd spring the trap. The office was tiny, its window facing a narrow alley. Sunlight only crept in for about 2 hours a day. But I liked it because it was hidden. I opened the laptop and started with the first task. Background checks on Horizon Tech. No surprises. Horizon Tech was registered 3 months ago. Legal representative, Ryan Zhou. Shareholder, Ryan Zhou. 100% ownership. Registered capital, $1 million. Paid in. Business scope, tech development. Consulting. Services. Registered address. An incubator in the city's tech district. On paper. Just another startup. But I knew exactly what it was for. Sophie was planning to transfer all of Crest Technologies' core business data, client resources, and technical architecture to this shell company. Then she'd stage a strategic restructuring, letting Horizon absorb Crest's vital assets. My founder shares would be diluted to nothing. She and Ryan would take the new company public, and me and Owen and the rest of the founding team would be kicked to the curb. I organized everything into encrypted files at 2 p.m. Owen texted, "Department meeting at 3 today. Sophie might formally announce the migration project. You should keep an eye on it." I replied, "As planned. Record the meeting. Send it after at 3:47 p.m. Owen sent a 43-minute audio file that I put on my headphones and listened to the whole thing. Sitting on the windowsill overlooking the alley, Sophie's voice came through clean and clear. Confident. Relaxed. In a way I hadn't heard her speak to me in years. Horizon has a stronger algorithms team. She was saying, integrating our data could save us at least 4 months of development time. Technically, we'll be migrating the user behavior database and the recommendation algorithm model. Product and tech teams. I want the interface ready in 2 weeks. Ryan will coordinate the whole thing. Stronger algorithms team. The model she was talking about. Owen and I had spent 3 years writing it. The algorithms team at Horizon was just going to rebrand our work. I closed the audio file and opened another encrypted folder. A list of all of Crest's core technology patents. I'd compiled it over the past week. I went through each one, marking the proprietary parts. And next to each, I noted the original code storage location, development timeline, and developer signatures. These would be evidence in any intellectual property lawsuit. Then I moved to the next task. Auditing Sophie's major expenses and related party transactions over the past 3 years. I still had founder-level access to the underlying architecture of Crest's financial system. Sophie had downgraded my admin privileges, but she didn't know I'd kept the backdoor to the one I'd built myself in the company's earliest days. Owen was the only other person who knew it existed. 3 days of combing through 1,000 days of financial records. I cross-referenced consulting fees, service charges, channel costs, matching them against Horizon's registration dates and Ryan's personal account activity. The pattern made my blood run cold. Over the past 18 months, Crest had transferred over $600,000 to Ryan's personal account that categorized as project bonuses and external consulting fees. Another $1.8 million had flowed to 3 shell companies registered at the same address as Horizon. That IT was a closed loop. Crest's money went out, circled around, and ended up in Horizon's accounts. This wasn't just financial fraud. It was a complete money laundering and asset transfer operation. I screenshotted, categorized, encrypted, and backed everything up in 3 separate locations. 1 on the temp office computer. 1 on a portable drive hidden in the basement of my old apartment. 1 in a safety deposit box Owen had rented at a bank. Never put all your eggs in one basket. Lesson learned in my first year of business. That night, Sophie texted me, "Not coming home for dinner." "Don't wait up." I replied, "Okay," with a smiley face. Then I checked her social media. 10 minutes earlier, Ryan had posted a photo. The city's most exclusive Japanese restaurant. A table with toro and shrimp. 2 wine glasses clinking together. 1 with S and 1 with R written on little tags. The caption, "Overtime." I took a screenshot and saved it. Then I went downstairs and bought a $5 bowl of spicy noodles from a street vendor. Sat on the curb and ate it. Afterward, I went to pick up Lily from her piano lesson. She sat in the practice room, her fingers stumbling through the opening of Fur Elise. The teacher was frowning, telling her to work on the phrasing. Lily's forehead was beaded with sweat, but she kept going. Didn't complain, didn't look out the window, just played it again and again. I sat on the plastic chair outside and watched her small back. Straight and determined. Sophie's voice echoed in my head. Piano takes discipline. If she can't play it right, she's not practicing enough. If she inherited your genes, she'll never be good at it. I'd laughed it off then. Our daughter's smart. Now it just sounded pathetic. Dad. Lily finally came bounding out of the room, sheet music in hand, face flushed. "The teacher said I improved today." "Really?" I scooped her up. "Then we have to celebrate. What do you want?" "Spicy noodles." I laughed and ruffled her hair. Deal. We sat in the noodle shop, Lily happily slurping hers. Mild broth. No spice. Just a few slices of luncheon meat. She finished the whole bowl, Even the soup. I watched her cheeks puff out like a little chipmunk. That familiar ache. Part warmth, part pain. Swelled in my chest. Dad. She set down her chopsticks and looked at me seriously. Are you and Mom fighting? No. Why would you think that? Because Mom hasn't been home for dinner in days. Her voice was quiet. Even when she was busy before, she'd still be home on weekends. And she said she'd frame that drawing I made. But it's still in my backpack. I paused. Then I smiled. Mom's been really busy lately. Once things settle down, it'll be fine. Lily looked at me with those clear eyes. Too clear. I felt my own reflection in them. And I couldn't quite hold her gaze. She didn't ask anything else. Just nodded and went back to her soup. That night, Sophie still wasn't home. I gave Lily a bath, dried her hair, read her a story, and tucked her in. Then I went back to my room and opened the phone. A report from Jack that the private investigator Owen had recommended. Ex-cop, 15 years in the business. Tight-lipped. Thorough. It contained a 5-year social network analysis and financial flow audit of Ryan Zhou. I scrolled down. Halfway through, my thumb stopped. It was a dashcam still. Date, 3 years ago. Location, the mountain road on the north edge of the city. In the image, a black Buick Regal, driver's side. Ryan Zhou, passenger seat. A woman's profile. Blurry, but the hairstyle, the jawline, and the Cartier bracelet on her wrist, I knew them too well. Sophie, beneath the image. Jack had added a note. 3 years ago, a white SUV veered off the road at this location. A young girl in the vehicle sustained minor injuries. The official report ruled it a single-vehicle accident due to driver error. However, traffic cameras show the Buick Regal appeared on the same road multiple times within 5 minutes of the accident. Its trajectory intersected closely with the accident vehicle prior to the incident. My hands started trembling. 3 years ago. June 17th, the day before Lily's 5th birthday. Sophie had taken her to a farm in the northern suburbs to pick strawberries. On the way back, the car went off the road. Lily had been in the back seat. Head injury. Mild concussion. 3 days in the hospital. Sophie said she'd swerved to avoid a motorcycle. I believed her completely. Never questioned a thing. Now this. I closed the phone and leaned back in my chair. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Wind rattled the clothes rack on the balcony. I looked toward Lily's room. A thin strip of warm yellow light glowed from under the door. I got up, walked over, and pushed it open just a crack. She was fast asleep, hugging her little dolphin. A small smile on her face. Some happy dream. I closed the door and went back to my study. Opened the laptop. Emailed Jack. Dig deeper. Get clearer images of the highway footage from that day. Track the Buick's full trajectory. Expense is not an issue. Sent. I sat in the dark for a long time. Then I did one more thing. I organized all the evidence I'd gathered so far, sorted by timeline, category, and importance, and updated all 3 backup locations. Next to every entry, I added the source, cross-references, and relevance notes. The folder was growing. A mountain of ice, building beneath the surface. Sophie and Ryan were probably celebrating somewhere right now, toasting the pathetic loser who'd retreated to the stock market. Let them laugh. The harder they laughed, the harder they'd fall. Chapter 4. The Crest Technologies Annual Gala was the company's biggest event of the year. 200 guests, investors, strategic partners, core clients, media, champagne, canapes, the clink of crystal under chandeliers. Deals were made here. Sophie had been planning it for a month. She'd booked the entire ballroom at the Grand Bay Hotel, hired the city's best event planners, and micromanaged everything from the lighting to the menu. Tonight was the rollout of the company's strategic transformation. A public unveiling of the Horizon integration. I was on the guest list. Of course, as the nominal founder. I had a seat at a table in the back corner. Lynn, wear that charcoal suit tonight. Not your old jacket. Sophie had reminded me 2 days before. You don't have to speak, but at least don't embarrass the company. Okay. I'd smiled. The afternoon of the gala, I made one last stop at the temp office. I did one last thing. I implanted a time bomb in the core database architecture. If a full data migration was ever triggered, the system would automatically start a hidden backup process, copying the raw data to 3 preset cloud servers while leaving permanent, undeletable logs of the migration attempt. It had taken me half a month to write, disguised as a routine maintenance command, deep enough that even the best technicians would need to tear the system down to its bones to find it, and by the time they did, it would be too late. The Grand Bay Hotel was covered in red carpet. Crest's logo banners flanked the entrance. Sophie stood at the door in a crimson gown. hair pinned up, diamond chandelier earrings catching the light. She was radiant. Ryan stood beside her in a blue velvet jacket, hair slicked back, obnoxious, but impressive enough to pass. I went in through the side entrance with Lily. Sophie had said not to bring children, but I told her Lily had won a piano competition and wanted to celebrate. Sophie gave a perfunctory mm and let it go. I dressed Lily in her favorite white dress, tied her hair in pigtails with butterfly clips. She was nervous, gripping my hand, her big eyes taking in the chandeliers, the dark red tablecloths, the candles, the flowers. The ballroom was enormous. The stage backdrop read Crest Technologies, Horizon Future in gold letters, with the company's blue whale logo beneath. Our table was the one closest to the entrance. Sophie had been so thoughtful. You and Lily can sit in the back. It'll be quieter. I smiled. Sat down with Lily. Gave her a creme brulee. The gala started at 7. Sophie took the stage as vice president. Past year's achievements. The company's vision. Gratitude to partners. She stood in the spotlight, poised and perfect, her voice filling the ballroom. Every pause, every smile was calibrated. The applause was thunderous. Investors nodded. Clients whispered approval. I sat in my corner, slowly drinking a glass of water. My eyes followed Sophie through the crowd. This woman on stage, bathed in praise that she was my legal wife, the mother of my daughter, 10 years by my side. Now I watched her like a stranger performing a well-rehearsed script. Lily leaned against me, eating her creme brulee. She scooped up a spoonful and lifted it to my mouth. Dad, try this. It's really good. I opened my mouth and took it. Sweet. Almost too sweet. Not sweet enough to cover the bitterness in my chest. After Sophie's speech, the host announced a surprise segment. Curtains parted. Ryan's son Kai walked onto the stage in a tiny suit, reciting an English poem. Stumbling over half the words. The audience clapped obligingly. Ryan stood in the front row, phone held high. Beaming, Lily looked at the stage. Then she tugged my sleeve. Dad, Kai got 2 words wrong. Don't worry, I said, patting her head. He was nervous. Lily nodded. Didn't comment further. Sophie returned to the stage. She was going to announce the major strategic decision. The room went quiet. All eyes on her. She stood at the podium. A slide appeared on the big screen behind her. Crest Technologies times Horizon Future. The 2 logos side by side. Ladies and gentlemen, she began. After thorough evaluation, Crest Technologies will begin a deep strategic partnership with Horizon Future starting next quarter. We believe this will unlock significant growth for the company. She went on about technological synergies, market expansion. Some people nodded approvingly. Others whispered. A few of the longer-term investors looked uneasy. I could see them exchanging glances, clearly caught off guard. Sophie clicked the presenter remote. The next slide should have been Horizon's introduction. Instead, the screen went black. Then a video started playing. At first it was blurry. Phone footage. Shaky. Tilted. But it sharpened quickly. A hotel room. The same hotel. The background curtains matched the executive suites just down the hall from the ballroom. 2 people sat on the bed. Sophie and Ryan. Sophie wore a bathrobe, her hair wet, clearly fresh out of the shower. Ryan leaned against the headboard, his hand on her shoulder, intimate as any lover. And Sophie's voice came through crystal clear. Once all the data's moved, Crest is just a shell. Lynn's shares that diluted to nothing. He can do whatever he wants after the contracts are signed. He won't even have access to the building. Ryan chuckled. What about Lily? That girl's sharp. Don't let her make trouble. Sophie scoffed. She's a kid. She doesn't understand anything. Besides, I should have taken care of her 3 years ago on that road. Keeping her around has been a kindness. Your driver's solid. Reliable. The motorcycle was scrapped. No trail. Too bad. Though not a few more centimeters to the left that day. The video cut off. Silence. Absolute. Complete. Not a single breath in the entire ballroom. 200 faces fixed on the giant screen. Now dark. But the 30 seconds of footage had detonated like a bomb. Sophie was still on stage, still gripping the presenter remote. The blood drained from her face in less than a second. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She was a statue in the spotlight, struck by lightning. Ryan shot up from his seat, his chair scraping the floor with a screech. His face was white. He looked around. For escape routes, but a hand was already on his shoulder. Owen. He'd moved from the tech section to the ballroom floor, blocking Ryan's way like a wall. Then I stood up. Everyone turned to look at me. I was wearing the charcoal suit. I straightened my collar and took Lily's hand, walking slowly toward the stage. Lily's palm was sweaty. But she didn't look scared. She kept in step with me, her little shoes making soft, determined sounds on the carpet. I reached the stage. Stopped. Looked up at Sophie. She'd finally found her voice. Hoarse. Nothing like her usual confidence. Lynn, you're insane. That video is fake. Synthesized. Her fingers gripped the podium. Knuckles white. Fake. I looked at her. My voice calm. Almost sympathetic. Sophie, do you want me to play the original audio now? The full hotel surveillance footage. The executive suite. Room 2106. That was booked under your ID. Should I call the hotel manager up here to confirm? People were pulling out phones. Cameras. The investors' faces had gone dark. One of them. A middle-aged man in a sharp suit stood up. His voice barely contained. Sophie, I need an explanation. Sophie's gaze swept across the room. Faces that had applauded her, praised her, invested in her. Now they were all jurors. She stepped back. Her heel caught on the edge of the stage. She stumbled, grabbing the podium to stay upright. Her eyes found Lily. Lily was looking up at her mother. Those big, clear eyes. No anger, no resentment, just a child's instinctive confusion, staring at something strange and unfamiliar. Sophie flinched like she'd been struck. Lynn. Her voice rose. Desperate. You ruined me. You ruined everything. You're just I ruined you. I cut her off. My voice was cold now. Sophie, who was in that video talking about taking care of a child, who's been siphoning company assets, who's been sleeping with her assistant and lying to me for 10 years. I let the words hang. Who do you think looks worse? The waste you've been calling pathetic for 10 years, or a woman who would harm a 10-year-old child for money and a man? Silence. Absolute silence. Then I turned to the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry you had to see this tonight. My name is Lin Yu. I'm the founder of Crest Technologies. What you just saw is true. The financial evidence, the video originals, and the police reports regarding Sophie and Ryan's business crimes, all of it has been filed with the Bay City Economic Investigation Division this afternoon. The legal process will proceed from here. Chaos erupted. People shouting, phones ringing, reporters surging forward. Security guards rushed in. But the room was beyond control. Two uniformed officers appeared. Economic investigation. Prearranged. They presented their badges and led Sophie out of the ballroom. As she passed me, she stopped, turned her head. Her face was a mess of emotions. Anger, shock, denial. And something that looked like hollow despair. Lynn. Her lips moved. I could barely make out the words. You'll regret this. I didn't answer. I just pulled Lily closer and watched them take her away. Ryan was dragged out the other exit. Owen and security. His velvet jacket was torn. His hair fallen across his face. He looked like a plucked chicken. The ballroom was emptying. Someone came up to me. Mr. Anderson, one of our oldest investors. His face was still pale, but there was something else in his eyes. Lynn, you played this close to the chest. I just smiled. Some things take time. I looked down at Lily. She'd been quiet the whole time. No crying, no screaming. She just looked up at me with those clear eyes. Dad, she said softly, your hands are shaking. I looked down. My left hand was trembling. A slight tremor that ran all the way from my shoulder. Not fear, not anger, just the release of a tension so long sustained that my body didn't know what to do now. I crouched down and wrapped my arms around her, burying my face in her small shoulder. It's okay, I said, my voice muffled. Dad's here, outside. Bay City gleamed under a canopy of neon. The ballroom staff were already clearing the debris. Chairs clattered as they stacked them. I pulled out my phone. 9:37 p.m. 42 days since the airport. 42 days ago. I'd watched my daughter asked to give up her first-class seat. Tonight, I'd ripped open the secrets and lies of the woman who shared my bed for a decade. 42 days of pretending to be a failure. Hundreds of pages of evidence. Endless sleepless nights. Every moment of swallowed humiliation. Every time I told myself just wait a little longer. All led to tonight. But I didn't feel victorious. I carried Lily out of the hotel. The autumn wind hit my face. Cool and clean. Lily was already half asleep. Her head on my shoulder. Dad, can we go home? Yes, I said. Let's go home. I walked toward the parking lot. Behind me, the Grand Bay glittered. The real storm was just beginning. The legal battles, the media circus, the investor fallout. But for this moment, my daughter was in my arms. Her small hand gripped my collar, like she was afraid I'd vanish if she let go. I settled her into the car, started the engine, drove out of the lot. In the rearview mirror, the hotel's glass facade reflected the city's flickering lights. Sophie, I said quietly in the empty car, I'll see you in court. Chapter 5. The 72 hours after the gala were a blur. When I got home at 2 a.m., I had 47 missed calls. Investors, partners, media, relatives, everyone asking the same question. Lynn, what the hell happened? I silenced my phone and set it face down on the nightstand. I tucked Lily in first. She'd fallen asleep in the car. Then I sat in the dark of the living room, watching the city settle down outside. The next morning, the police showed up. I laid out the evidence boxes on the dining table. Owen arrived soon after, carrying a freshly printed system access log that documented Sophie and Ryan's database manipulation in detail. Mr. Lynn, the lead investigator. A man named Detective Zhang, mid-40s. No nonsense. Flipped through my files methodically. When he got to the 3-year-old accident material, his brow furrowed. This goes to criminal division. I know. I pushed over Jack's dashcam stills and the traffic analysis. I filed a supplementary complaint. Intentional harm. If the evidence continues to build, I want the charges upgraded. Zhang met my eyes. Nodded. We'll proceed according to law. That afternoon, Sophie was formally arrested. She spent nearly 10 hours in interrogation. For the first few, she kept repeating, the video was fabricated. I was set up. Then the investigators showed her the hotel records, the financial transfers, the system logs. She went quiet. She still didn't confess. Not to the criminal charges. She insisted she'd been mismanaging, not embezzling. But the fight had gone out of her. Ryan, on the other hand, folded within 2 days. He blamed everything on Sophie. She was the mastermind. I just followed orders. When I heard the recording of his confession, I nearly laughed. This man, the one she'd thrown away her marriage for, he'd sell her out in a second to save his own skin. The news hit the markets. Crest stock dropped 12% on opening day, but it recovered within 3 days. Why? Because my statement at the gala and my quick cooperation with investigators convinced the investors that Lin was clean. Owen issued a public technical assurance that no core data had been stolen. Sophie's faction crumbled. The managers she'd promoted either resigned or were suspended. In a week, Crest's power structure was completely reset. I was back at the center, but I didn't resume the CEO seat immediately. I put Owen in charge of daily operations while I focused on the legal cases ahead. Divorce and damages. What do you want? Lin, my lawyer, a veteran divorce attorney named Ms. Fong with 20 years of experience, spoke with surgical precision. Given the evidence. Adultery, asset transfer, attempted harm to your daughter. You can demand she leaves the marriage with nothing. The criminal side is up to the prosecutors. Assets, I said. Everything under her control. Including her company shares. I want it all recovered. Not for me. I leaned back. I want it placed in a trust. For Lily's education and future. Not a cent goes to Ryan or Sophie's family. Ms. Fong scribbled notes, then looked up. One more thing. Sophie's family contacted me today. They want to meet you. I thought for a moment. No. Everything through legal channels. 3 days later, I sat across from Sophie in a visiting room at the Bay City Detention Center. She wore a gray prison uniform. No makeup. Hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. She'd lost weight. Her cheekbones were sharp. Dark circles under her eyes. We sat at a table, separated by a metal grate. Her hands rested on her knees. Nails trimmed clean. I didn't think you'd come, she said. Her voice was hoarse. I came to tell you a few things. I placed a folder on the table. Lily's with me now. She's taking time off school until this settles. The company's stable. Your team has been let go. The divorce hearing is next week. Sophie was quiet for a long moment. Then she let out a low, dry laugh. Lynn, do you know what I thought all these years? She looked down at her hands. I thought you were weak. Always too accommodating. Ryan said you were soft. I believed him. I turned the page. You were wrong about more than that. I slid a document toward her. 3 years ago, the Mountain Road Criminal Division has opened an investigation. Sophie's composure cracked. Just slightly. That was an accident. Her voice was thin. Ryan doesn't see it that way. I watched her face. Do you know what he told them? He said you arranged the motorcycle. He said you'd mentioned more than once that Lily was too attached to me, and it would complicate things. He said you wanted a steeper road, but were worried about making it too obvious. Sophie's fingers curled. Knuckles white. She let out something between a laugh and a sob. Lynn. She lifted her gaze to mine. Do you hate me? I considered the question. There was something almost pleading in her expression. Like a drowning woman looking for a last lifeline. She wanted to know if I hated her. Maybe because it would give her some comfort. Some justification. I don't hate you. I said. What you did to me. The cheating. The lies. The company. That's not worth hating. But what you did to Lily that I can never forgive that I stood up. She still calls you mom in her nightmares. She still thinks you're just away on a long business trip. Do you understand? Sophie, the day you made her give up her seat to someone else's child, that I'll never understand what you felt. But I will never let you hurt her again. That Sophie's eyes reddened. Her shoulders started trembling. But she didn't cry. The guard coughed. Visiting time was almost over. I turned and walked away. Lynn, her voice stopped me. Tell Lily. Tell her I'm sorry that I didn't turn around. Chapter 6. Outside the detention center. The sun was bright, that almost too bright. I stood on the steps for a minute, letting the warmth hit my face. I pulled out my phone. A voice message from Lily. Sent half an hour earlier. I hit play. Dad, I played Fur Elise all the way through today. My teacher said I could record it and send it to Mom. But she said she's on a business trip far away and can't get messages. Dad, when is Mom coming home? I listened to it once. Then again. Then I put my phone away and walked to the car. I would not pass Sophie's message on to Lily. Not because of anger, but because a 10-year-old deserves better than a hollow I'm sorry from a woman who has no right to ask for forgiveness. Someday, when Lily was older, when she could understand, I would tell her everything, including Sophie's words in the detention center. But not now. Now she just needed to know, Dad is here. Dad will always be here. Meanwhile, the corporate war was winding down. Sophie's strategic partnership with Horizon had been frozen. Ryan's company registration had been suspended. The asset transfer pipeline that the one-eyed booby trapped with my time bomb hadn't moved a single file. Owen called me with barely contained satisfaction. Lynn, that code was a work of art. Took me 3 levels of decompilation to figure out what it did. Sophie's outsourced tech team never saw it coming. They were about to package the whole database when the system threw an integrity check failure and locked them out. They looked green. I smiled. Keep them around for now. After the trial, we'll clean house. Understood. Owen paused. Seriously, though, Lynn, the company. People are waiting for you to step back in. Some investors are still nervous. You should address them after the first hearing. I said, let the court speak first. Then I'll speak. I can live with that. I stopped the car by the community gate. Autumn sunlight filtered through the plane trees, dappling the windshield. A vendor pushed a cart past that candied hawthorns on sticks, gleaming red in the sun. Lily had wanted some. I'd kept forgetting. I got out. 2 sticks. Please point. 3 days later. The civil hearing. The judge ruled in my favor on all counts. Divorce, property division, custody. Sophie's attorney had barely put up a fight. She didn't appear in court. Her lawyer presented a written statement. She waived all claims to property. I didn't know if it was guilt or just calculated damage control. Either way, I didn't care. Outside the courthouse, a young female journalist caught up with me. Mr. Lynn, any thoughts on today's verdict? I considered my response. The law has done its part. I said, but for me, there are no winners here. I just want my daughter to grow up away from all of this. The reporter blinked, surprised. Maybe she'd expected something more dramatic. I walked away. I got home at 4 p.m. Lily was in the living room, playing piano. Sunlight poured through the window, outlining her small shape in gold. Fur Elise stumbled out of her fingers, but it was getting there. She finished and looked up, face bright. Dad, I played it all the way through. That's my girl. I scooped her up and spun her around. Dinner. What do you want? Braised pork ribs. I carried her into the kitchen. The smell of cooking filled the house. Outside, the sky was starting to turn orange-pink. The city was finally settling down after all the noise. I stood at the stove, stirring the ribs in the pot, and thought about one thing. Next week, I was taking Lily to the cemetery on the east side of town. There was a man named Leo lying there. He'd been lying there for a long time. I needed to visit him. Some debts need to be paid. Some names should not be forgotten. Chapter 7. I found the old photo 13 days after Sophie was arrested. I'd gone to the office to clear out her belongings. Per police instructions, a young woman from admin followed me with a box. Mr. Lynn, what should we do with all this? Catalog everything. Give it to the police for record keeping. Anything uncertain. We sealed. Sophie's office was on the 23rd floor, with a south-facing view of the city skyline. I'd rarely visited it. Every time I came, I'd had to make an appointment like a stranger. I opened her desk drawer by drawer. Files, notepads, pens, a half-used tube of lipstick. Then I got to the bottom drawer. Electronic lock. I tried her birthday. Lily's birthday. The company founding date. None worked. I tried the date of our first date. It clicked open. Inside were 2 notebooks, a box, and a few silk scarves. I pulled out the notebooks. Old marketing notes. Nothing interesting. Then I opened the box. Inside, old photographs. Some letters. Edges yellowed with age. The top one was a group shot from a college campus. For young people in graduation gowns. Arms around each other. Smiling. I recognized two of them, myself. In my early 20s. Thinner. More hair. And next to me, a tall young man in black-rimmed glasses. His arm around my shoulder. A lazy grin on his face. My heart stopped. It had been 10 years since I had last seen that face. Leo had died after graduation. A fall from a campus building. The police called it a suicide. I'd attended his funeral. Cried until I couldn't breathe. Then I'd pushed the memories away. Too painful. Sophie had come into my life not long after. She'd approached me, said she'd been Leo's classmate. Had seen my post about his death. Wanted to offer comfort. We'd grown close. Married. Over the years. I'd thought of Leo sometimes. But I'd never connected Sophie to him in any deeper way. Until now that I in the bottom corner of the photo. Someone had written in black pen, me, Leo, Jean, and next to it, a circle drawn around two figures standing close together. A young woman in a white shirt and jeans, smiling at the camera, giving a V sign, young Sophie, standing next to young Leo, their shoulders touching. I turned the photo over. A small strip of yellowed tape. Beneath it, a torn scrap of sticky note. I carefully peeled it back. Handwritten, Summer 2008. Farewell dinner. Leo said he was going to introduce me to his parents. Sophie had kept this photo for years, hidden in a locked drawer. She'd never thrown it away. She and Leo had been together in college. She'd never told me that I stood in the 23rd floor office, holding the old photograph, feeling the cold sweat creep down my back. She hadn't come to me as a stranger offering comfort. She'd come with an agenda. She'd seen me as a replacement. A way to get to Leo's work. I took out my phone and texted Jack, looking to Sophie and Leo. Their college relationship. Everything between then and Leo's death. Then I took a photo of the picture and sealed the original in an evidence bag. That night, I sat in my study after Lily was asleep. The laptop screen glowed. I opened an old folder, one I hadn't touched in years. Leo's case. News clippings. The accident report. The suicide note they'd found in his dorm room. Sorry to my parents. Sorry to my friends. Too much pressure. I can't go on. We'd all believed it. Leo had been struggling with finances and job prospects. No one had questioned it. Now, looking at that photo, Sophie and Leo together, smiling at graduation. I had to wonder, where was Sophie the night Leo died? 3 days later. Jack's report came back. College sweethearts. Lived together after graduation. 2 weeks before Leo died. They'd had a huge argument. Sophie had tried to pressure him into selling a tech patent to a competitor. Leo had refused. Said it was his brother's work. The competitor's name, Apex Technologies, the company Crest had been competing with for years. Now defunct. I stared at the name. Picked up the phone and called Detective Zhang. Detective, I have new information. About Leo. My old partner. He died 10 years ago. Ruled a suicide. I think Sophie was involved. Silence. Mr. Lin, do you have evidence? Yes. I gripped the phone. She's been hiding a photo of them together. And I can find you a witness. After I hung up, I sat in the dark. My hands were clammy. Leo had died when I was 23, 2 years out of college, with nothing to my name. He and I had spent 3 nights in my rented apartment, writing the core framework of what would become Crest's tech. Brother, he'd said with that lazy grin, we're going to be rich off this. The night he died, I'd been waiting for him at a barbecue stand near campus. I waited until 2 a.m. Then I got a call that he was gone. I'd rushed to the school. He was already covered with a sheet. I couldn't bring myself to lift it. 10 years later, I sat in my study while my daughter slept in the next room and my wife sat in a detention center. And the woman I'd believed was my comfort, my partner, my companion. She might have been tied to Leo's death. I closed my eyes. Leo's young face appeared in the dark. Black-rimmed glasses. Laughing. Lin, you idiot. He'd always say, when you strike it rich, don't forget the roast lamb, Leo. I whispered into the dark. If you can see this, I'm sorry I was so stupid for so long. The curtain shifted in the breeze from the open window. Then it was still. Chapter 8. 4 days later. Owen drove me to an old neighborhood on the west side of town. We were looking for a man named Zhao Yongqiang, a former technical director at Apex Technologies. He'd been there when Sophie first approached Leo about the transfer. Zhao was in his 50s, hair mostly white. He lived on the 6th floor of a building with no elevator. When he opened the door, he hesitated for a second before letting us in. His apartment was modest. Worn sofa, old TV, A half-empty pack of cigarettes on the coffee table. I knew you'd come eventually. Zhao sat down, hands clasped. His voice was heavy. I've held this for 10 years. Too afraid to say anything. But since you found your way here, I'll tell you, D. He pulled an old envelope from under the coffee table. Inside was a scanned document, a technology transfer agreement. The buyer was Apex Technologies. The patent number matched the core code Leo and I had developed. Sophie approached our boss, said she could get Crest's core algorithm. Our boss asked what she wanted in return. She said she didn't want money, that she wanted a position inside Crest. Zhao lit a cigarette. After Leo died, she came to us with the agreement, told us Leo was gone, but she had the goods. Our boss got scared, turned her down, returned the document. But I kept a copy. I don't know why. Maybe because I knew this woman was dangerous that I took the document. Read it line by line. Mr. Zhao, can I give this to the police? Zhao was quiet for a long moment. Then he stubbed out his cigarette. Yes. 10 years is long enough. It's time to pay what's owed. At the door, he added one more thing. Mr. Lin, that kid Leo, he was a good one. If he'd lived, you two would have made a hell of a team. I stood in the stairwell for a moment. Then I bowed to Zhao. Thank you. Owen walked behind me down the 6 flights. Neither of us spoke. Footsteps echoed in the stairwell, one by one, like a delayed tolling of a bell 10 years too late. That night, after Lily's bedtime story, she asked me something unexpected. Dad, that friend of yours, Leo, where is he now? I blinked. How do you know about him? I saw a picture in your study. Lily hugged her little dolphin toy, her big eyes glowing in the dim light. A guy with glasses. You were laughing next to him. You never told me about him. I was quiet for a moment. Then I sat on her bed and smoothed her blanket. He went somewhere far away. He was my best friend. Is he happy now? I looked at the glow-in-the-dark stars Lily had stuck on the ceiling. They glowed faintly in the dark. I think so. I said. He was the kind of person who's happy wherever he goes. Lily nodded. She was asleep within minutes. I sat at her bedside, holding her hand, feeling her small, warm breaths against my palm. Moonlight spilled across the sheets in a thin silver layer. Leo, I whispered. Almost there. Just hold on a little longer. Chapter 9. Sophie's criminal trial was set for mid-November. Bay City had settled into deep autumn. The ginkgo trees outside the courthouse had turned a brilliant gold, shedding leaves in the wind, carpeting the steps in yellow. I wore a black suit. No tie. Lily came with me. I'd asked her if she wanted to. She'd thought about it and said she wanted to see her mom. I didn't refuse. I didn't tell her what would happen in court. She wore a white jacket, her hair in pigtails I'd braided. She sat beside me in the gallery, hands in her lap, fingers worrying the hem of her jacket. The courtroom was full. 30 people. Prosecutors, defense, the bench, media, company employees. Sophie's family. Sophie's mother sat in the back row, her hair white, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. Her younger sister sat beside her, whispering reassurances. I saw them. They saw me. Sophie's mother met my gaze for a moment, lips parting like she wanted to speak, then she looked away. Sophie entered in a gray prison uniform. Her hair was cut short, her face thin and pale. She scanned the gallery, her gaze lingering on Lily for just a moment before moving on. The trial began at 9 a.m. The prosecutor read the charges: embezzlement, misappropriation of funds, intentional harm. The last one had been added just before trial. The prosecution had found new evidence: Zhao's document, Leo's diary entries, a re-examination of the accident scene. The defendant, knowing the technology was jointly developed by the victim and Lin Yu, and that Leo had expressly refused to transfer it, conspired with others to fabricate a suicide note and stage Leo's death as an accident. Forensic re-examination of the victim's injuries indicates inconsistencies. With a simple fall, there is evidence of physical force. The prosecution believes this constitutes intentional harm resulting in death. Defendant, do you plead guilty? Sophie was silent for a long time. The courtroom held its breath. I plead not guilty to intentional harm. She finally said, I acknowledge the financial crimes. The defense argued lack of direct evidence, chain of custody issues, alternative explanations, a standard defense, designed not to win but to reduce sentencing. Then the prosecution presented a third piece of evidence. Jack had spent weeks reviewing footage from old security cameras near the building. The quality was bad. 10 years old, but with modern enhancement. Frame by frame, they'd found something. 15 seconds of footage. A hallway camera near the rooftop entrance. 2 people went up to the roof within minutes of each other. Leo in a plaid shirt, followed by a woman in a white dress. The woman's height, gait, and build matched Sophie. The prosecution's expert testified, 95% match with the defendant's physical characteristics from that period. The courtroom stirred. Sophie's mother broke into sobs. Her sister held her. Sophie's face went pale. She gripped the rail of the defendant's box. Her knuckles white. Her lips trembled. Ryan was there. She said suddenly. The courtroom went silent. The person who helped me forge the note. The person who went up to the roof with me. Sophie's voice was raw. It was Ryan. He was my intern then. My boyfriend. He said that once it's done, don't look back. I was scared. I hid for 6 months. Then I found Lynn. I knew he had Leo's code. I got close to him to get the rest. You know the rest? She sagged. All the fight drained out of her. Lily gripped my hand. Her fingers were cold. I looked down. She looked up at me. Eyes wet but not crying. Dad. She whispered. What was Mom talking about? I squeezed her hand. I'll explain later. Let's listen to the judge. The judge declared a 20-minute recess. The courtroom emptied in a slow wave of murmurs. I carried Lily out to the hall. Sunlight streamed through the high windows. Falling in golden rectangles on the polished floor, Lily leaned against me. After a moment, she said, Dad, can we go home? Okay. I crouched and lifted her. As soon as the judge is done, we'll go. She rested her head on my shoulder. Didn't ask any more questions. 20 minutes later, the judge returned and delivered the sentence. For embezzlement, 8 years, plus forfeiture of personal property. For misappropriation, 5 years. For intentional harm resulting in death, 15 years. Reduced from the maximum due to her cooperation in providing information about her accomplice. Total, 20 years in prison. Disenfranchisement of political rights for 5 years. Ryan would be tried separately. The gavel fell. Sophie swayed in the defendant's box. She closed her eyes. She didn't cry. Her mother screamed and had to be helped out by her sister. I stood up to leave. Lily in my arms. As we reached the door, Sophie's voice came from behind us. Lily. I stopped. Lily lifted her head from my shoulder and turned. Sophie, being led away by officers, twisted to face us. Lily, I'm sorry. Mom is so sorry. The officers pulled her away. Her voice echoed in the high courtroom ceiling and then was cut off by the closing doors. Lily dropped her head back onto my shoulder. Her small body trembled once, then went still. I patted her back, over and over, and walked outside. The autumn sun was warm, but not hot. The ginkgo leaves fell in soft swirls. A few landed in Lily's hair. I reached up and brushed them away. She looked up at me, eyes red, but she hadn't cried. Dad, she said, is Mom ever coming back? I thought about it. Not for a long time. I said, but I'll always be here. She was quiet for a moment. Okay, let's go home. Dad. Yeah. Home. I carried her down the courthouse steps. The heavy doors closed behind us, shutting away a decade of lies and betrayal. The sun was warm on my face. Autumn was good. Cool breeze. Clean air. The scent of osmanthus. I walked toward the car and thought about Leo. The night we'd shared instant noodles in my rented apartment. Lynn, you idiot. When you make it big, don't forget the roast lamb. His young face, grinning in the sun. Leo, I whispered, the lamb's on me. I'll bring some next time I visit. Chapter 10, Epilogue. 3 months later. We changed the company logo. The old blue whale stayed, but a new line was added beneath it. A small, elegant phrase in silver gray. Leo's legacy. I designed it myself. Simple, no fanfare. It just appeared one Wednesday morning. IT updated the servers, and the logo refreshed across the company's website and products. I posted a brief internal notice. The company is hereby renamed Leo's Legacy. In memory of a friend, let us remember where we came from and move forward with purpose. That afternoon, I left the office early. Lily was on winter break. I'd taken the day off to take her to the cemetery. The cemetery was on the east side of town, nestled in a valley with mountains behind it and open fields stretching to the south. The fields were harvested, dark brown earth stretching out toward the winter horizon. A few bare persimmon trees stood against the gray sky, their fruit glowing like small lanterns. Leo's grave was in the 4th row of the east section. Low, gray marble, his name and dates carved into it. The years carved into the stone were too short. Too short. A withered bouquet sat in front of the headstone. Left by someone who'd visited before. I crouched down, cleared the old flowers, and replaced them with white and yellow chrysanthemums. Lily stood beside me, holding a small bundle of pale purple daisies she'd picked out at the flower shop. She placed them carefully at the base of the headstone, then gave a small bow. "Hello, Uncle Leo," she said softly. "I'm Lily. My dad always talks about you. He says you were his best friend. Thank you for being with him before. I knelt on the stone slab and wiped the dust off the inscription with my sleeve. As my fingers brushed over the letters of Leo's name, something deep in my chest loosened, something that had been frozen there for 10 years, like a block of ice melting, trickling away between my fingers. "Brother," I said, my voice a little rough. "I renamed the company. I hope you don't mind. I thought about it for months. And this is the only name that fits. Half those codes were yours. Half those investors, clients, markets they came from your vision. I'm finishing what we started. Better late than never. A breeze came down the valley, carrying the scent of earth and dry grass. The flowers trembled. "Lily." I turned. "Come say goodbye." Lily walked up to the headstone, knelt, and pressed her palms to the ground. She bowed her head. A full, respectful bow. When she rose, a few blades of dry grass clung to her hair. I plucked them off and smiled. "All right. Uncle Leo got your message." We stood there a few more minutes. The sun broke through the thin clouds, catching the letters on the headstone, making them gleam. On the drive home, Lily sat in the passenger seat, eating a candied hawthorn stick and chattering about everything and nothing. The school holiday show, a classmate's new hamster, skiing over winter break. I listened and said yes to everything. "Yes, we'll do that. Yes, I'll take you." The car cruised down the highway. Winter sun slanted through the window, warming Lily's face. Her pigtails bounced as she talked. The week before Chinese New Year, the company held its annual celebration. Smaller this year. No outside investors, just staff and a few old shareholders. About 80 people. We had hot pot in a warm little banquet hall. No flashy lights, no red carpet, just long tables, steam rising, people fishing meat and greens out of bubbling broth. Owen was red-faced from the liquor. He came over and clinked his glass with mine. "Lynn, this hot pot beats last year's fancy dinner by a mile. Last year's cost 30,000. I didn't even eat it." I laughed. "This one's 120 a head. I had 4 plates of beef." The staff cheered. I gave a brief toast. This year was hard. We lost some things. We gained some things. The bad is behind us. Thank you all for staying, for trusting me. Next year, we build great products. We make money. We live well." Lily sat beside me, learning to fish shrimp balls out of the pot with the help of a young female programmer. She laughed when one popped out of her spoon. On New Year's Eve, it was just Lily and me. Sophie's mother had sent a vacuum-packed duck and a short note. "Make sure Lily eats well." I didn't reply, but I steamed the duck and put it on the table. Lily ate it happily. Dinner was 4 dishes and a bowl of soup. Braised pork ribs, steamed fish, garlic broccoli, and handmade dumplings from Owen. Lily helped roll the dough. I stuffed the filling. We made a mess of the kitchen. Lily had flour on her nose. I called her a little kitten. She chased me around the table, trying to put flour on my face. The TV was on in the background. The New Year's gala playing. The sound of laughter drifting through the house. We sat on the couch and ate dumplings. Fireworks burst outside, painting the living room window in colors. Lily was full, lying on my lap, hiccuping. I tried to take a photo. She covered her face and said, "No pictures. No pictures, Dad." She went quiet, uncovered her face, and looked at me. "Are we going to be alone again next year?" I thought about it. "Oh, you want more people." She considered seriously, then shook her head. "Just us is good." "But Dad," she looked up at me with those big eyes. "Can you promise me that next year you'll still make braised pork ribs?" My throat tightened, but I smiled and rubbed her nose. "Deal. I'll make braised pork ribs every Chinese New Year, until you get sick of them." She let out a satisfied noise, rolled over, and went back to watching the gala, laughing at the skits. I leaned back into the couch, one arm around her. I pulled out my phone and flipped to the photo of Leo's headstone. The white chrysanthemums, his name catching the afternoon light. I closed the screen, resting my chin on top of Lily's head, smelling the faint strawberry scent of her shampoo. Another firework burst outside, briefly illuminating the room in gold and red. This year was over, years ago. A young man in black-rimmed glasses had sat in my rented apartment eating instant noodles and said, "Lynn, you idiot, when you strike it rich, don't forget the roast lamb." Years later, I was sitting in my own home, my daughter in my arms, watching the New Year's fireworks, and the weight in my chest was no longer heavy. It had softened into something warm, like the last embers of a fire that had almost gone out. "Leo," I whispered. "Happy New Year." Lily shifted in her sleep and mumbled something. then settled back into breathing. On the TV, the host started the countdown. The living room lamp cast a soft, steady glow over everything. A new year was coming. My little girl and I were moving forward, scars and all, clean and determined, living well.